The air was too thick. Jack Reeves snapped awake to the weight of heat pressing against his chest. He coughed, dust clinging to his throat, the jungle stench unfamiliar, fermented bark, electric ozone, and something acidic. He blinked, vision swimming with static. His head throbbed. A single phrase rolled through his mind, heavy and slow. "This isn't Earth." He sat up fast, bad choice. Nausea gripped him, and he clenched his jaw until it passed. The jungle stretched around him in every direction. Towering purple-leaf trees, vines pulsing faintly with bioluminescence, and sounds, so many sounds, alien shrieks, insect chittering, branches snapping high above. His hands ran across his chest. No gear. No knife. Just the ragged tatters of his fatigued shirt. Combat boots were still on. Small win. The last memory was a cold beer, a Florida beach, and a sudden flash behind his eyes. Stun weapon. No doubt. He stood slowly, scanning his surroundings like instinct commanded. Movement, too fast to be wind, flashed through the canopy. A shimmer. Cloaked? No, reflective camo maybe. Predators were nearby. He dropped low and moved toward higher ground. 200 meters up, he found it, a vantage over a clearing ringed by sharpened stakes. A large biped in armor stood in the center, dragging something by the ankle. A woman. Human. Her screams echoed off the canopy. "No!" Jack muttered, gripping a fallen branch like it mattered. The armored figure tossed her like trash, pulled a rifle from its back, and aimed without urgency. Her screams stopped mid-breath as a plasma bolt tore through her chest. The thing raised both arms in victory as if it had just won a game. Cheers erupted from a speaker embedded in its shoulder. Applause. Recorded. This wasn't a battle. It was a sport. Jack ducked back into cover, muscles tensed and boiling. That woman hadn't stood a chance. She was prey. A challenge scored on some alien tally sheet. He pressed his forehead to the dirt. Stay calm. Assess. Survive. A faint whirring hummed overhead. He glanced up. A drone. Round, hovering, covered in twitching spines. Its lens fixated on the corpse. It scanned the kill, then zipped upward. He followed the direction of its departure and discovered a pathway, wide enough for armored patrols but laced with scattered bones. Human remains, stripped of clothes and dignity. His jaw clenched. Further down, partially buried, a carcass of one of the hunters lay in pieces. Someone had fought back. Poorly. Jack didn't move on until he checked the hunter's remains. Broken ribs. Blunt trauma. A stone axe? Primitive. But there was something useful. His hand found the alien's holster, still intact. Inside, a single long-bladed knife made of black alloy. Balanced. Sharp. Deadly. He whispered, "Thank you," to the corpse, then vanished back into the trees. Hours passed, maybe more. Jack's sense of time blurred. The twin suns dipped behind the horizon, casting crimson light over the leaves. He hadn't seen another human. The silence ate at him. Until he heard the sobbing. Low. Guttural. A child. He followed it, slower than slow, staying against the wind, knife ready. In a shallow cave beneath tangled roots, he found her, maybe 10 years old, barefoot, her face covered in dirt and dried blood. She flinched when she saw him, pulling back, eyes wild. "Stop," he whispered, raising his palms. "I'm human. I won't hurt you." Her lips trembled. She said nothing. "My name's Jack," he said. "Navy. Special Forces. What's yours?" "Sorry," she whispered. "They killed my dad." Jack nodded. "I saw." She clutched a scrap of cloth to her chest. "He said not to cry." "He was right," Jack said, keeping his voice level. "Crying tells them where you are." He reached into his boot and pulled out a compact field wrap. Tattered but usable. He handed it over. "We move when the stars come out," he said. "You stay quiet. You run when I say. Understand?" She nodded. Nightfall brought a new danger: heat sensors and searchlights from hovering drones. Jack watched them sweep the forest like probing fingers. He tapped his temple, recalling the SEAL motto, "The only easy day was yesterday." Jack moved through the foliage like a shadow, Sari close behind. She never spoke. She didn't need to. They stumbled across another camp, alien crates, power sources humming softly. Jackpot. Inside one of the boxes, food, rations with unfamiliar labels but clearly meant for humanids. Nutrient paste. Gross but edible. And a holopad. He tapped it. A holographic schedule flickered to life, showing the words: Drakari Hunt Division. Below it, a grid showing drop cycles, points, heat zones, and prey counts. Category: Homo sapiens. Difficulty level: Intermediate. Kill score: 5 points. Capture score: 3. Status: Active. Next drop: T11 hours. His stomach turned. This wasn't war. It was a blood sport. Jack powered the pad down and slipped it into his makeshift satchel. From the trees, he watched a patrol approach the camp. 2 Drakari soldiers, tall, plated in gray-blue armor, speaking in a guttural dialect. He saw their stride, their posture. Relaxed? Arrogant. He could work with that. He pulled Sari close. Stay here. No sound. No movement. She nodded without a word. Jack moved. Fast. A branch cracked. One of the Drakari turned, and Jack drove the stolen blade through his neck seam, ripping downward with brutal precision. The second swung around, raising a weapon, but Jack tackled him low, swept his legs, and smashed his face into the crate corner. Silence. He checked their gear. One still had a pulse. Jack leaned close, whispered in English, "You enjoy hunting? Good. Now it's your turn." He left him there, unconscious and bleeding. He returned to Sari. "We're done running," he said. "We're going to fight. Quiet. Smart. And lethal." She looked up at him. "You're not like them." Jack paused. "No. I'm worse." He looked at the stars overhead. Unfamiliar constellations. A red moon rising behind jagged peaks. A new world. A deadly game. And he was about to rewrite the rules. At dawn, the sky above Vasca Prime glowed with amber haze. Twin suns edged over the horizon, casting sharp shadows across the jungle floor. Jack Reeve crouched behind a tangle of thick vines, eyes fixed on the Drakari patrol moving through the brush below. 3 soldiers. Same armor as before. Broad-shouldered. Overconfident. He counted their steps. Logged their pattern. From behind him, Sari whispered, "They're looking for the 2 you killed." Jack nodded, not taking his eyes off the targets. "That's exactly what we want." He'd learned in his first war that enemies never look for ghosts. They hunt noise, panic, and fear. Jack had no intention of offering any of that. Instead, he offered chaos. The trap was simple: tension wire from a downed drone rigged to a nearby tree limb. He watched the lead Drakari's foot hit the line. The release snapped, dropping a jagged shard of metal right through the soldier's shoulder plate. He collapsed with a gurgle, armor shorting out. The others froze. Jack moved. He dropped from the canopy, landing hard on one's back, slamming the knife into the base of the alien's skull. The third spun with his plasma rifle, but Jack kicked it aside, driving an elbow into his throat and dropping him to the mud. 3 Drakari. Gone in seconds. He dragged the bodies into the undergrowth and motioned for Sari. She emerged silently, now barefoot and faster in the terrain. The fear in her eyes was retreating, replaced by something colder. "We take their packs," Jack said. "Food, tools, anything tagged." She knelt beside one of the bodies. "This one was recording. See?" She pointed to a glowing chest plate. Jack smashed the device with a rock. Inside a ravine, half buried under moss, they found what he was looking for: a collapsed hunting outpost. It was old, half destroyed by plant overgrowth and time, but its core systems flickered with reserve power. Jack pried open the main console with a broken plasma blade. The screen buzzed to life, displaying flickers of command logs, target statistics, and network access prompts. He studied the interface. Basic but readable. Drakari Hunt Division. Vaskra Prime Theater. He read aloud. This isn't just some rogue game. It's organized. Sanctioned? Sari asked. Why are they doing this? He exhaled slowly. Because they think they can. And no one stopped them. On the screen, a live feed appeared. It showed a different clearing, a group of 10 humans locked in place by electrified cuffs around their necks. A Drakari captain circled them like a wolf. Below the feed. Upcoming broadcast, Sector 7C Elimination Round. Estimated viewership, 1.3 billion. Jack's jaw tightened. They're broadcasting this. To their people. Maybe the entire Accord. He leaned forward and accessed the backup logs. Dozens of names flickered across the screen, dates, drop coordinates, kill counts. His hands hovered for a second before extracting the data into a stolen wrist pad from one of the fallen patrols. Evidence. Truth. Are you going to send it? Sari asked. Jack didn't answer. Not yet. Not until he had more. Later that day, Jack moved toward a nearby ridge marked as a no-entry zone on the stolen map. That meant weapons. Or command. He left Sari hidden in the cave. Alone, he crawled through thick underbrush, his breathing steady, every footfall calculated. Years of special operations taught him how to become invisible. Here, it mattered more than ever. At the ridge's base stood a reinforced watchpoint with active sentries. Jack climbed a slope that let him peer inside without being seen. What he saw nearly stopped his breath. Krell Thosen. He'd seen the face once, briefly, during a peace negotiation transmission with Earth, back when Earth still thought it was being welcomed, not farmed. Thosen stood nearly 7 feet tall, armor embossed in gold trim, 2 ceremonial blades crossed at his back. He wasn't a field commander. He was the architect. Jack ducked back and whispered to himself. So you're here to watch the show yourself. That meant the game was escalating. And Krell, the master hunter, had finally smelled worthy prey. Night returned. The jungle shimmered under a deep purple sky, and mist hugged the ground. Back at their cave, Jack laid out pieces of alien equipment, short-range jammers, proximity mines, thermal flares. Crude now, but soon, tools of war. Sari asked. How do you know what all this is? He didn't look up. I made a career out of breaking better tech than mine. She shifted closer, frowning. Why did they kick you out? Jack hesitated. Because I broke orders to save civilians. She watched him quietly. That's not wrong. It was to them. He adjusted a targeting beacon and attached it to a trap wire. You really think we can beat them? She asked. Jack didn't smile. We don't need to beat them. We need to humiliate them. Make them afraid to ever come near us again. At dawn, Jack and Sari moved on the first supply node. It was protected by auto turrets and 2 light patrols. Jack waited until one of the Drakari stepped into the kill zone. The mine detonated upward, ripping armor and torso apart. The second patrol opened fire. Jack rolled left, grabbed a fallen blaster, and fired once, clean shot through the exposed helmet joint. Smoke choked the clearing. Jack moved fast, disabling the turrets and pulling the backup drive from the relay tower. He accessed the network. A map unfolded, highlighting every current prey zone, every survivor camp, every hunting party. He stared at one cluster blinking red. Civilians trapped. Grid 9E. He tapped coordinates into his pad. That would be the next move. Later that night, under a crescent moon, Jack intercepted a Drakari distress signal. Hunter Team Delta eliminated. Unknown hostiles. Request extraction. Jack grinned. They were beginning to talk like prey. The jungle smelled like ozone and scorched bark. Smoke drifted from the blackened trees of Sector 9E. The ambush had lasted all of 7 minutes. Jack's trap chain, 4 mines and a burning decoy, had ripped through the patrol before they even saw it coming. Now, he crouched in the embers, dragging the last of the stunned civilians to safety behind a collapsed hunter outpost. Sari followed close, checking the wounded woman's vitals just like he taught her. "They'll be back," she said, voice low. Jack nodded. "That's the point." He glanced toward the tree-line where 2 Dracarys corpses lay smoking. Jack didn't leave those kinds of messages early on. But now, he wanted eyes on the aftermath. Let them see their elite soldiers turned into burnt trophies. He turned to the civilians, 6 in total. All dazed, filthy, underfed. One man, a former police officer, still had fight left in his eyes. Jack spotted the stance immediately, heels set, hands curled like he wanted a weapon. "You military?" Jack asked. "Retired SWAT," the man replied. "Name's Delgado. You're the one they're whispering about, aren't you? The ghost?" Jack said nothing. Delgado gestured at the bodies. "We saw you on a drone feed. Someone recorded you taking out 3 of them with nothing but a blade and a trapped wire. They say you're not human." Jack looked him in the eye. "I'm just angry." Later that evening, Jack laid out a plan using a stolen Dracary holomap. The targets: 3 relay towers, 2 ammo caches, and a central coordination dome marked restricted. The timing had to be perfect. If they moved fast and scattered enough, the hunters would be forced to stretch thin. That gave him room to hit Krell where it hurt. Sari added, "They've already started responding. I picked up a drone burst. Krell's bringing down his personal guard." Jack didn't blink. Good. The next morning, Delgado joined him for the first strike. They hit a supply cache at dawn. Jack handled the turrets while Delgado threw firebombs made from fuel cells and scavenged canisters. The explosion rolled through the forest like thunder. The Dracary response was immediate. Faster. Sharper. Not the casual patrols of before. These were war veterans. Jack recognized their movement, disciplined, clean formations. No showboating. He adjusted quickly. Guerrilla tactics no longer worked the same way. He had to escalate. They regrouped at the cliffside overlook above a dry ravine, the fallback point Jack designated in case of hot pursuit. It wasn't just a safe spot. It was a message. Below them, Dracary elites stalked the brush, searching the shadows. Jack waited until they entered the ravine, then detonated the charges planted beneath the cliff hours before. The concussive blast swallowed the squad in a cloud of earth and metal. 3 survivors staggered from the smoke. Jack took one down with a stolen plasma rifle. Delgado handled the second. The third tried to flee, until a tripwire snared his leg, and he tumbled backward into a pit filled with scavenged spikes. The silence that followed was sharp and final. Sari exhaled. "That was loud." "Good," Jack said. "Let them feel it." Inside the recovered helmet of a fallen Dracary, Jack accessed a secure broadcast channel. It connected to the command dome. He tapped into the encrypted feed and forced a message through. The screen blinked to life. Krell's face appeared, regal and unbothered. Jack stared through the camera, expression stone. "You thought we were animals," Jack said. "Now you're bleeding like them." Krell tilted his head, intrigued. "Ah, the infamous ghost. You speak well for prey." Jack didn't rise to it. "You brought the wrong species into your little game. We're not here to entertain you. We're here to bury you." The screen cut to black. Later that night, Krell responded, not with words, but fire. A precision strike hit one of Jack's fallback shelters. 3 civilians died instantly. One of them was a teenage boy who had begged to fight. Jack had told him no. The boy hadn't listened. Delgado pulled the charred remains from the wreckage. His hands trembled. Sari just stared at the flames. Jack didn't speak. He walked into the darkness and didn't come back for hours. He returned at midnight. No words. Just action. He led a small team toward the base of the main relay spire, the last link in the Dracary coordination grid. It was heavily guarded. Jack counted at least a dozen armored elites on patrol. He moved in silence, slipping beneath sensor fields and cutting power conduits one by one. Once inside, Jack planted the final charge at the core generator. Before leaving, he paused. There, glowing on a secondary console, was a file labeled Species Report, Homo sapiens. He opened it. Lines of clinical analysis scrolled past. Emotional instability. Primitive loyalty drives. High pain tolerance. Extreme psychological unpredictability. Recommendation, unfit for subjugation. Threat level, escalating. Jack smiled. For the first time in weeks, it wasn't out of anger. He lit the fuse and ran. The spire went down in a tower of fire. By morning, chaos bloomed across Vasca Prime. Patrols lost contact with each other. Hunter teams panicked. Some retreated toward the orbiting command ship. Others dug in. Jack knew Krell wouldn't run. He'd land. Personally. His pride wouldn't allow anything else. That was the goal. Force the predator to step onto the jungle floor. Near the river canyon, Jack found Sari sharpening a piece of metal into a blade. You ready to leave? He asked. No, she said. I want to help. You are helping. She looked up. They killed my father. Burned my world. You think I just want to hide? Jack didn't have an answer. He handed her a tracker beacon. If something happens to me, you press this. Coordinates are preloaded. Send the evidence. Sari took it, fingers trembling. You better come back. Jack gave her a look. I don't plan on dying. I plan on making history. As he walked alone through the jungle's edge, the comms crackled. A deep voice echoed through the helmet feed. Human warrior. You have my attention. You have my respect. Come. Face me. Let us see what your species truly is. Jack looked up at the sky. I was hoping you'd say that. The jungle was silent. No birds. No insects. Just the wind, low and constant, brushing through the crimson canopy. Jack stood at the edge of a rocky basin, eyes locked on the black lander that had just descended like a falling star. Its hull steamed from re-entry, armored, angular, marked with the red sigil of the Drakari Hunt Division. It was him. Krell Thosen. Jack's pulse was steady. Focus absolute. No more traps. No more strikes from the shadows. This wasn't a game of ambushes anymore. This was the final move. The ramp hissed down. Krell stepped forward, alone, gold-trimmed armor gleaming in the sun, two long curved blades resting across his back. His helmet retracted, revealing gray skin, black eyes, and a cruel mouth pulled into something resembling a smirk. You've killed 83 of mine, Krell said. A new record. I should thank you. It's been centuries since I felt anticipation. Jack didn't move. Then savor it. It'll be your last. The two men closed the distance in silence, no crowd, no drones, no pageantry. Just blood between them. Jack struck first, fast, low, aiming for the leg seam. Krell deflected with an armored vambrace, responding with a downward slash meant to break bone. Jack dodged right, circling. Their blades clashed in brutal rhythm, metal rang, sparks flew, and the jungle watched in breathless stillness. Krell drove forward, brute strength behind every strike. Jack countered with precision, cutting at joints, testing mobility. He knew he couldn't win a contest of force. But he didn't need to. He needed Krell to overreach. You fight like a soldier, Krell said mid-combat. Disciplined. Cold. But I see the fire behind it. Rage. Grief. Fear. Jack didn't answer. He planted his heel, spun, and delivered a side kick into Krell's knee. The Drakari stumbled, just enough for Jack's blade to slice a groove into his side. Blue blood sprayed. Krell grunted and grinned. Beautiful. He dropped his second blade, drawing a plasma dagger from his hip. The weapon shimmered in his hand. Jack rolled back, barely avoiding the next swing. The dagger cut through a tree behind him like air. He ducked, feinted, slid under Krell's next attack, and slashed across the alien's ribs again. Krell staggered, bleeding more. You're not used to prey fighting back, Jack said, voice low. Krell's smirk faded. You mistake this for a rebellion, he growled. But it's only defiance. Fleeting. Predictable. He lunged. Jack sidestepped, but Krell's gauntlet clipped his shoulder, spinning him. The dagger hissed past his cheek, slicing skin. Jack tasted blood. Krell pressed. Blow after blow. Jack parried, ducked, blocked. But he was slowing. He baited a high strike, then let it graze him. Pain flared. Jack fell backward on purpose, kicked up dirt into Krell's face, and rolled aside. He reached the dead ground where he'd hidden it earlier. A pulse grenade. He slammed the trigger and rolled it toward Krell. It detonated midair with a high-pitched whine. Krell's armor flared, then shorted. The plasma dagger fizzled, died. Jack was already on his feet, charging. He tackled Krell to the dirt. Fists hammered down. Once. Twice. Krell blocked the third, grabbed Jack's wrist, twisted, and threw him into a tree. Jack groaned, ribs screaming, but he stood. This is how you want to die? Krell demanded. No audience? No glory? This isn't about glory. Jack spat blood. It's about justice. They circled again. You think this ends with me? Krell said. You think the Accord will care about a few thousand humans lost in the dark? Jack narrowed his eyes. They will. He reached to his belt and pressed a button. From orbit, a signal beacon activated. Hours ago, he'd wired it through the stolen comms array and loaded the footage, every execution, every corpse, every broadcasted score from Krell's Bloodsport empire. The entire Accord Council was now watching. He knew because the small device on his wrist blinked green. Krell followed his gaze, then stiffened. You recorded it? Every second. You treacherous. Jack charged again. This time he didn't go for the blade. He went for the exposed ribs. Elbow, knife, headbutt, his movements were ugly, violent, real. Krell fell, coughing blue. Jack stood over him, blade at his throat. You lose. Krell bared his teeth. Then kill me. Jack hesitated. He could end it. One strike. But death was mercy. No, Jack said. You live. And you watch your empire burn from a cell. Krell roared and lunged, but Jack drove the hilt of the blade into his temple. The Dracarys fell limp. Hours later, Council enforcement vessels arrived. Galactic law enforcers landed in sleek black crafts and dragged Krell away in restraints. Cameras hovered overhead. Jack didn't speak. He handed them the data core, nodded once, and walked away. 2 days passed. Back at the evacuation camp, Jack sat with Sari on a fallen log. The jungle still rustled, but the dread was gone. The skies above were no longer full of hunters, but ships marked with Accord insignia. You're not going with them? She asked. He shook his head. My part's done. Delgado approached. They're calling you a symbol. A voice for species rights. They're offering a commission. I don't need a title. Sari looked up. What do you need? Jack stared into the forest, distant. Peace. That night, as the last transport lifted off, Jack stood alone near the tree line. The war was over. But the warning had just begun. Because somewhere out there, among stars and predators and councils pretending to be just, humanity had shown its teeth. And they'd never forget the first time prey hunted back.